So we are at 7:02, July 10, 2018, meeting of the Littleton Board of Health. And first thing on our agenda is administrative matters. First thing under that is minutes. We don't have any minutes in the packet today, so we'll be skipping that. I do want to say that we don't have an full-time administrative assistant helping us out. That position is empty. And I sent an email to Keith Bergman to ask what the status was of that. And I can tell you what he said. Because we're doing minutes months behind.
Mm-hmm.
I think she said she was doing February. So I think that we need to keep up on that so that we've got a record. So Keith responded, we're looking to fill the vacant position of administrative assistant for the building department, Board of Health, and zoning board of appeals. So I guess there's just one position to support this. We did an internal posting and have one candidate whom Roland would like to hire. See attached. And then, oh, hi, Jim. And then, under the terms of the memorandum of agreement between the Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, and Zoning Board of Appeals, this appointment requires approval by your boards as well. May we proceed with this hire? So, I do have the resume here. And they're asking for approval to appoint Ms. Janet Fairchild. Janet's currently our clerk in the planning department, seeking a full-time position. Then they go through, I can forward this to everyone, but they go through the process that was followed as the hire. Looking for her requirements. Okay, so I don't have a resume here, but do you want me to read the letter from Ann? Oh, it's very short.
Yeah.
So thank you for considering me for the administrative assistant, building, zoning, board of appeals, and board of health position. I will be perfect for the position as I am already familiar with the office and have performed several tasks for the building department over the past few months. Between that, my work with Westford Conservation Commission, and my eagerness to learn and grow, I know I will be successful in this role. As we have discussed, I am willing and able to be flexible with the transition between my current position with the planning board and the new position, moving between the departments as needed. I have a good working relationship with Marin and with Shelley, and will do what is needed for everyone's best interest. I guess my first question is, it sounds like she's not going to be able to take the position full-time either if the plan is to move between her current position and the new position?
Probably until they fill her spot.
Yeah, because should they leave in an empty spot by filling an
I wonder how long
empty spot?
I wonder how long that's going to take, because we're already 4 months behind.
Was there a start date on?
That's a good point. So they posted an external advertisement, January 2, 2018. 16 applications were received. 2 applicants were interviewed and a selection was made, but the position was not filled at that time due to other departmental changes. First choice of applicants was no longer available and ready to hire. Reposted the position April 4. 64 applications received.
Wow.
3 candidates were selected for interview, including Ms. Field, who was one of the original 2 applicants interviewed in February.
Miss Field?
Yeah, okay, so something's weird here. The appointment of Ms. Filed was not possible and the process terminated.
Oh.
So we've got Field, Filed, and Fairchild. Subsequently, we became aware that Janet had decided in May to seek a full-time position. and only Janet applied. I guess that's Janet Fairchild. I don't know. Janet comes highly recommended by Marin, having 6 months' experience in that department. She works efficiently, is pleasant, super organized, able to handle the night meeting requirements of the position. With her BS in psychology, she can handle most of our customers with ease. Okay. Sounds good to me. So Keith is asking if they can go ahead and hire. Does anyone have any questions on that? Do you need any additional information?
I would just ask, will she be able to be here nights for meetings to
They
help out?
did say here that she would, but I can double check on that, because I think that's important too.
Mm.
But I don't know, is she gonna be as knowledgeable as Shelley?
I
But she'll at
mean-
least be here to open the door and lock the door and take our.
Well, it sounds
Well,
like
she
she's
works
on
on
the
the-
learning curve
Mhm.
to get there. So, one,
I don't think we'll find another Shelley.
No, I
Night
know,
meeting.
I know.
night meetings, can she make those? 2 is, I have a question on what they're gonna do during the overlap period and when that other position will get filled.
Mm.
So how long is the overlap? And did you have another question?
Not about that, no.
Okay. All right, so I'll ask those questions and then we can go from there? Okay. All right. Anything else on that topic? And then next thing is correspondence.
It's not
Yeah.
exactly correspondence, but I got an email today from Cindy Napoli for the Littleton Association for Coalition Against
Opioids?
Addiction, LOAA, that this is the email. It says, "Good morning. I want to let you know that District Attorney Marion T. Ryan will be speaking about the opioid crisis next Monday night at 6:00 p.m. at room 103 at Shattuck Street. Hope you're able to attend. Please also share this invitation with anyone you feel may be interested in attending." So I will be out of town. I can't do that, but that would be good maybe if somebody either spread the word or
Monday,
Monday, what's that date, the 16th? At 6:00 at 103 Shattuck Street. There's also, everybody get that? There's also a planning board meeting, I think, next Thursday.
This
too.
Thursday.
This Thursday, oh, okay. I can't go to that either. And I think it's about the,
There's a laundry
Fif-
list of stuff
yeah.
on there, I think.
55 and over,
Yep.
especially, yeah. So we may want to have somebody attend that, too.
Is anybody planning to go to that?
I was gonna go.
I might be able to go too.
How does that work if we're gonna send, we're not sending like one of us on behalf of the Board of Health, it's just,
Yeah.
as a resident.
Well, I think you go as, on, not behalf of the Board of Health, but you go and then report back. I mean, does that make sense? So we have King Street Senior Residential Development. Okay, so that's what we were just talking about, right?
I thought I saw Cricket. I saw it on Facebook, so I don't have an email from it, but
Yeah, it's Cricket, it's King Street, it's the Foster Street down by the train, and then another 9-lot subdivision on Foster Street on the corner of Mill.
I'm sorry, I'm getting, so we've got a notice for King Street Senior Residential Development, Planning Board meeting July 12th, 6:30. And they are looking for, they're looking for comments. So if we as a board have any comments on that, I mean, if anybody's gonna go to that.
So that's, we got an email about the Cricket Street.
I think we got 2, so I'm just trying to go
What is
through the
it?
stuff
Could-
that came in, because I was.
Could you forward those to me, because I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I don't think I got it either. Was it from Shelley?
No, it's
No,
from
it's
Aaron.
from me. Yeah, Louise.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Kevin, you should have gotten it.
No, I didn't.
Ooh. Kevin Baker 30?
E. Baker. That's my
Yeah,
middle.
the E-Baker. Oh, jeez, okay. You haven't gotten anything I've sent you then.
Hmm.
Okay. So there's a planning board meeting, July 12th, 6:30, room 103. And it's 24 townhouse style residential units, age targeted for seniors.
May I ask a question to our health agent while he's here?
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. 30
I'm
and
just
20.
wondering, why does the planning board issue the permits in the aquifer water resource district as opposed to the Board of Health?
Because I think that's part of their regulations.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
In other towns, does the Board of Health deal with that?
Not all towns have that kind of a situation.
Yeah,
So the two other towns I work in don't have
they
that.
don't, okay.
So, I mean, it was a function of your planning or zoning process at some point in time.
That implemented that.
And that's, I think, why they ended up, because I think particularly for like commercial buildings, I think sometimes they will require monitoring wells be installed and tested regularly. And I think that becomes part of, if you go in for a planning board approval, like site plan approval, sometimes I think they make that as a condition that you do,
Monitoring.
groundwater monitoring in the area, so.
Got it. Do you do that, or is that DEP?
Nope, it's, the planning board handles that with, it used to be the water department, then it stopped, and I think the water department's picked it back up again.
So the other one is Jones Meadow Senior Residential Development, and that is 32-bedroom senior cottages, including 4 affordable units on approximately 12 acres off Spectacle Pond Road near Cricket Lane. That is also going to be discussed at the planning board meeting July 12th, and I'll forward to you. Okay. And then there are links in the emails I just sent out to the project files. Okay. So we have people going to that July 12th, it sounds like, meeting, and then hopefully you can keep an eye on the Board of Health issues that are in there. Okay, good.
And another meeting, too, on Tuesday, the 17th. The Town of Littleton Master Plan Implementation Committee is having their first public workshop for the revitalization of Littleton Common, the revitalization project. And that is Tuesday, July 17th at 6:30 at the fire department. And I can't go to that either.
Okay. July 17th, 6:30.
July
fire
17th at
department.
6:30 to 8:30.
Okay.
Our consultants will provide an overview of the ongoing planning and design project, building on work completed in the town-wide master plan, gather your input on your vision for Littleton Common area, and outline next steps. Building on the community priorities and concerns that emerged during the public engagement segment of the 2017 Littleton Master Plan update, a team of consultants has been enlisted by the town to, 1, generate evaluations for the existing conditions of the common, 2, propose changes to the zoning regulations, 3, conduct market analysis for the common, and 4, develop design scenarios to guide revitalization of the common. Focusing on local character and regional market conditions, the scenarios will propose design and developmental changes based upon the following conditions: no zoning change, existing conditions without sewer, no zoning change with sewer, moderate zoning change with sewer, maximum zoning change with sewer. This workshop will offer residents, property owners, business owners, municipal officials, and other interested parties the opportunity to create a shared vision for Littleton Common that would include a pedestrian-friendly spaces, resilient to extreme weather, lush greenery and landscaping for shade and enjoyment, restaurants, cafes, retails of one-stop dining and shopping. What does an idyllic Littleton Common look like to you? Join us in the conversation. So you can send questions to an email address, masterplan@littletonmass littletonma.org, or 978-540-2425.
Could you forward that to, Erica? Okay. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
I know, and I'm gonna be out of town.
And then, under correspondent, and then we'll get on to, state public health officials announced season's first West Nile virus positive mosquito sample. And we've got a memo, a news release from Mass Department of Public Health. So this should go onto our website. And what it does is talk about ways to minimize the risk having to associate with mosquito bites, or getting bitten by mosquitoes, I should say. Let's see. The sample that was collected that was positive was June 20 in town of Weymouth. No human or animal cases of West Nile virus or Eastern equine encephalitis have been detected so far this year. There's no elevated risk level or risk level change associated with this finding. Anybody have any questions on that? Or comments or anything?
Do you want to pass that down?
Oh,
Copies.
Oh, great.
sorry about that. Yeah, this is the snow drive. All right, any board member updates? Nope. I did that. All right, it is 7:20. We're running 5 minutes late, and we are going to open the hearing for 3 Snow Drive, Civil Solutions Septic System Variances. If you could step forward and state your name, please.
I'm Kirk Fitzpatrick with Civil Solutions. Those are your butter notification cards. And basically, what we have before you tonight is a proposed upgrade for the existing 4-bedroom dwelling. Right now, they have the original system, which is in the backyard, which is composed, I would assume, a smaller tank and a leaching area. They've had issues with it in the past, so they assume it's not gonna pass inspection. So they're gonna be selling the property in the near future and want to be proactive and get the system upgraded prior to putting it up for sale. So we actually started in the front yard just because of the very limited access to the rear yard. The house is kind of centered in the lot. The driveway enters in on this side to a detached garage. This is actually a 36-inch maple, which takes up a good portion of the area in between the house and the lot line, which is kind of prohibitive for access to the backyard. And we've done several other ones on this street, and the material seems to improve as you go to the other side of Snow Drive. As you go to the back, it becomes a tight sand material, and there's actually a wetland right at the rear of the property. So we started out in the front. We had 2 deep observation holes, and both of them had a little bit of fill on top, and then a subsoil, and then a medium sand below, with an estimated seasonal water table at 48 inches, and observed water table at 5.5 feet. We did do 1 test hole in the backyard, just to see what it was going to be like, and we had 32 inches of fill, and then the old B layer down to 48 inches, and the water table at 16 inches. So
16?
16.
Wow.
So the rear yard would be cost prohibitive to try to site the system.
Is that based on modeling or water?
That was observed and modeling, 16 inches.
What was the date on that?
That was 4/24. April 24th. So what we're proposing to do is change the plumbing in the interior of the basement, come out the front to a new 1,500-gallon 2-compartment septic tank. It's going to flow by gravity with a 1,000-gallon pump chamber, and that's going to pump up to a proposed leach field composed of the Presby EnviroSeptic. It's going to be 13 feet wide and 32 feet long. With the use of the Presby, it allows for a reduction in the groundwater offset from 5 feet to 3 feet with a 2-minute percolation rate, with approval from the board. So that's one of the approvals we're here tonight asking for. In addition, just because the front yard is so small, we're asking for approval under 310 CMR 15.451B to reduce the requisite offset from a septic tank to a cellar wall from 10 feet to 7 feet. The proposed septic tank is going to be a monolithic tank, So monolithic tanks having the seam in the middle, it has the seam on the top, it's almost like a bathtub with a flat cover. So it's really, there's no opportunity for it to leak. And we're also asking for approval under 310 CMR 15451B to reduce the requisite offset from a leach field to a cellar wall from 20 feet to 15 feet. And again, that's just because of the limited area in the front yard to site a system. And last, we're asking for a variance from Littleton Board of Health Regulation 27 to allow fill required to meet minimum breakout grading requirements within 10 feet of a property line. So basically, the front yard's going to get elevated. Right now, there's a contour 98 cutting across the front yard. This is all based on the bottom of the corner board or top of foundation, meaning elevation 100 here. So there's about 2 feet of foundation showing. So the front yard's going to be raised, the final grade. By reducing the groundwater offset, we end up with about a foot of foundation exposed, and then filling a good portion of the lawn area. That elevated contour 98 to get pushed out to within 5 feet of the front property line. And to help meet minimum breakout grading requirements, we're proposing a poly liner 5 feet off the system, between the system and the street line.
I'm going to read Jim's comments. Unless you'd like to read them.
No, it's okay.
So for 3 Snow Drive, septic system for this house would be in failure based on Title V. Leaching areas in the seasonal high water table. Soil testing was conducted and a plan for the replacement system submitted for review. The site has restrictions that make the design of a fully compliant system very difficult. High seasonal water table, house location, wetlands in the backyard. The applicant is proposing a replacement system in the front yard. It would be very difficult to access the backyard with equipment. Because of the space available, a reduction of the groundwater offset is requested, as are reductions to the offset of the system components to the cellar wall. I don't have a problem with the request, as the area is served by town water, and the front yard has water table that is much deeper. Since you're here, what does that, front yard has water table that is much deeper?
So I think we had, what, 48 inches in the front yard?
Yes, and
As
16
opposed
in the
to
rear.
16 inches in the backyard.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was 16 in the front.
No, no.
Oh, glad to hear
48
that.
in the front and 16 in the back.
Thank you.
That's okay.
That's much better. Okay.
16 in the whole yard would be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
It'd be a much uglier looking system.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, I don't know if you should get a variance on the Presby offset if it's 6 inches, 16, but what's the underlying, what did it perk at?
It was 2 minutes an inch.
Okay.
So we're asking for a reduction from 5 feet to 3 feet.
All right. And were the property lines done by a professional land surveyor?
No, we've conducted the lot line survey.
Okay. So we have to talk about that going forward, because I think our regulations are a professional land surveyor.
So either
Actually-
stand by or provide a plan that they've used
For-
for land set.
But by a professional land surveyor.
That's right, I mean, you reference the plan.
Actually,
right?
your regulation says you have to be able to reference a plan performed by a registered land surveyor.
Okay.
So this is the plan from the registry.
Because I did have somebody on my street who built their septic system on the adjoining lot because they didn't have the property line right, so I'm
Yeah,
kind of
no, I'm
sensitive
aware of
about
that one,
that.
actually, because they called us about it. We didn't do it. but They wanted us to come out and certify.
Well, I
that
think
it
that was
replaced it.
somebody actually made a mistake, that it was surveyed, but somebody used the wrong pipe.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that
But-
was surveyed, just a mistake.
Anyway, we just want to make sure, because that we're following our regulations, right?
Right.
So what were you
This is
gonna-
the record plan. So this is the, lot 26 here.
So you're surveying off a benchmark from that plan?
We have multiples. There's
Okay.
a concrete bound here, there's an iron pipe here, there's a concrete bound here.
All right, so this is a PLS plan.
Yep, it's
Right.
recorded at the registry of deeds.
Okay, and then you're surveying off multiple benchmarks from here?
Correct.
And then you've got a PE stamping this plan, is that right?
This is stamped by a professional
Land surveyor.
land surveyor.
Yeah, but your plan here.
It's not required to be.
But you have PE stamping it, right? Your plan?
Yes.
Okay. I
It's
think
not
that's the
stamped.
question you asked.
Oh, I apologize. It's not
That's
stamped by
okay.
registered land surveyor. It's
Yeah,
stamped by P.
okay, I'm good with that. That sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah. Everybody okay with that?
About that?
Yeah, the property line.
Well, where is the property line? Are we talking the road, or are we talking a butters?
No, actually, the property line is about 10 feet in from the edge of the pavement.
Okay, so it's of the front yard.
Yes.
And where's the wetland line?
It's right at the back of the property.
Still better to put it in the front. That's-
Yeah, if we went in the back, we'd have to absolutely file with conservation.
I'll probably cut that big maple down and be able to get around the back.
And then it would still be difficult.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions, comments, discussion?
Are there any wells in the area that you know of?
The entire street's serviced by town water,
Okay.
and all these houses were built roughly at the same time.
Okay. And did you run a perk?
And we actually called it 2 minutes an inch, because it was pretty obvious it was 2 minutes an inch.
Well, and part of the problem is you've got water table coming in the bottom of that hole.
Correct.
So by the time they dug down there, they'd been,
At the 48?
yeah, be in the water table doing the
Okay.
perk test.
And where it is coarse sand, Jim has the authority to
Mhm.
establish the rate being 2 minutes an inch.
So it's coarse sand under the fill?
Yes. It's a medium sand. We concur it would be 2 minutes an inch.
Good.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Do we want to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to, tell me what I'm supposed to do. Just,
These are the, so it's 3 Snow Drive. And then these are the
Okay.
variances that were,
you want me to, do I read all, the whole
Yeah.
thing, like?
yeah.
Okay. So I make a motion to accept or approve the variations. Can I just say noted in the letter?
As stated.
As stated in the letter?
Yeah, I think so, because
Um,
I already read them out. Oh, you read them off.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
as stated in the
You.
letter,
As
but
stated in-
also that you read off,
Correct.
because you read them verbatim.
yeah.
Dated June 28th, just to...
Yeah, letter dated June 28th,
Mhm.
2018, on 3 Snow Drive, Littleton.
Anybody
And
have
shown
any-
on the plan, date,
Dated May 7th.
Shown on the plan dated May 7th, 2018 by Civil Solutions.
yeah. I should do it.
I second.
All
Anybody
in
want a
favor?
second?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, against? You're good.
Great, thank you.
We did get, there was a request from the office that somebody who had been typing up our minutes, that we start each hearing and say what the address is, and so I guess we have to be more cognizant about the people who are listening to the transcript to type it up.
There's the permit for that site there if you.
Oh, okay. So we can just sign it.
There are the permits that don't require any action, they were all.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So we have our bedroom. Don't forget
When's
to
it going
read
on the
our
market?
permit.
Or I guess after the septic system's done?
Yeah, I think in the fall.
Get to
An older
those.
gentleman and his kids are helping get it set up for sale, so.
It's a
It's nice
desirable
they're doing it.
location.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're doing it way ahead of time, which makes it
You know what?
a lot
I didn't
easier.
ask, are you in a butter? I'm so sorry. I was supposed to ask you that, and I forgot.
4 bedrooms.
Oh, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a
Good
good
night.
night. Were you here for this, for Snow Drive or for something
Nope,
else?
I'm here for something else. I emailed
Oh,
to
yeah.
find out, and they said I could come as an administrative matter.
Yeah, come on and sit down.
Explain it.
And you have to just say your name and your address.
My name is Jamie Flint, and this is about the property at 72 Grist Mill Road. Our contractor has been applying for a permit because we would like to put an addition on the house. And there is some concern based on the size of our septic system and the number of rooms already existing in the house. Just to put it succinctly, when we bought this house, it was listed as a 4-bedroom house. The 4th bedroom that they were considering is actually a finished attic space. The floor plan of the house was a 3-bedroom house. when we bought the house, we didn't have any children. So we figured it was a problem we could deal with down the road. We have since had 3 children, and now we need to have the 4th bedroom. And given the ages of our kids, we really don't want to put one of them up in the attic. In addition to which, the air conditioner for the attic is actually broken, and we're going to have to replace it, and we're planning to replace it as part of this project. So what we want to do is, we had an architect draw up plans for adding a new master bedroom over our garage, and we're going to be changing the existing master bedroom, part of it, into a 4th bedroom on the 2nd floor, so there'll be 3 bedrooms on the 2nd floor. We're going to renovate the bathroom, but we're not going to be adding any different bathrooms. We're just going to be adding another bedroom. The house currently has, which our contractor drew out with the measurements, has a finished attic space, which is 15 feet 6 inches by 37 feet, which currently we're using for storage because it's 9,000 degrees up there. And but eventually we would make it into a playroom. The basement is also finished. It has a half bath. It has the electrical, HVAC, laundry room, a little bit of storage, and it's basically a big playroom. And we are currently using the basement as a playroom. So what we would like to do, if possible, is to get a restriction put on our deed so that it's deeded as a 4-bedroom house only, because we are planning to use it as a 4-bedroom house. We want to sell it as a 4-bedroom house. If we ever do work on our septic, we're going to want to upgrade it to a bigger septic because we think that's a good idea anyway. But
What does your deed now say? Do you know?
I don't think it has any restrictions in the number of
What's your
bedrooms.
septic permit?
4.
So we can't discuss this? We can,
It's informal.
yeah, so it's informal, we can't open a hearing,
That's fine.
but,
I don't really know what to do, so I
Yeah.
need to find out.
If your septic permit says 4 bedrooms and it's on file, then you have a 4-bedroom house.
yeah. And you won't be able to change that to 5 bedrooms if you ever.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the way that's how we handle.
Well, she wants 4.
Right, but you had said you.
Yeah, she
you'd
wants to
enlarge.
change, it's already 4 bedrooms, but you can't use the 4th bedroom because of the age of your children and the air conditioning.
Right.
So you already have 4 bedrooms, it's a 4-bedroom system. You're just reconfiguring, making.
bedrooms.
You're
And
adding,
you're
you're
add-
adding a bedroom, but you're taking away, that bedroom's no longer a bedroom. That's
Right.
gonna be storage.
You mentioned that when you sold it, you were going to increase it. I just wanted to let you know that. That you can't go to a 5-bedroom by increasing the septic. I just wanted to let you know that.
Would probably do that anyway, just because we think it makes sense.
Yeah.
But we don't know, we honestly don't know that much about
Yeah.
septics.
We haven't had, we've had finished basements. I think we're trying to be really consistent. And this is a little different. I don't remember one like this. So,
The attic is finished space right now, but you use it for storage.
The attic is finished space, but we're using it for storage.
Any closets in the attic?
There is a rough closet. It doesn't have a pole or anything. It's just a walled-in area with doors.
is this
It
the,
looks like when they finish, this is the.
where's the attic?
This is the attic. It's basically just a rectangle. And there's, there's like, the person who built it had built in like crawling tunnels and like stairs with an upper level. Like they had a really elaborate playroom up in the attic. And they had,
Should have kept
That's
they
a little
had.
creepy. That's kinda creepy.
It is.
Oh, okay, that's.
I figure when the kids are older, the kids like to go up there in the winter anyway. They can't, we tell them, don't go
You
up
might
there
not be
in
able to
summer.
find your children, that might not be a bad thing. Where are you?
But it looks like basically when they did the attic, they just threw together a makeshift closet so that they could say it was a 4th bedroom.
Is it heated?
It is heated. And it had been air conditioned, but the air conditioning system failed. And in order to replace it, it was the old refrigerant. So in order to replace it, we would have to go in a totally different direction anyway. And since we were thinking about doing this renovation, what was pointed out to us, it would make more sense is if we got a system that would cover both the new spaces. So our contractor has been down to work on the permit, and he told us that what he got was that there was a concern just because of the number of already finished spaces.
He came
in the
here, or what do you mean, came down?
Went to the office.
house. Went to town offices.
Oh,
Okay.
And he said that this part, we had to make we had to be in touch because it's our house, it's not his house.
Yeah.
Um,
So so we have people come in and they want to finish their basement and they want to finish new rooms, and then they'll say, well, we're not going to use it as a bedroom. And that's probably the intent. We just have to make sure we're consistent with everybody. And I mean, we can't make a decision here anyway, but personally, I don't know, I'd have to think about or find
I
out,
think there was a-
what kind of things, other decisions we passed down that were close to this, or what the ramifications would be by passing something like this as far as precedent goes. What requirements? Jim, you got anything?
So, I don't remember it, I'd have to look at the plans again. It may have been by me, and what happens is, if you end up with, the way the code talks about bedrooms, they say that in a house that has more than 8 rooms, the way to determine the number of bedrooms is to add up all the rooms in the house, divide by 2 and round down. So when people come in with plans for proposed additions, we do the room counts and count room uses. So if you get a big open house, we count the room uses. So the only thing I can think of is, if I had looked at it and it was pushing 10 rooms because of the finished space, I probably would have said to whomever, there's 2 ways to do this: either put a 5-bedroom septic system in or go talk to the board about a deed restricting it to a 4-bedroom. So without looking at all the plans again, right now, that would be the reason why somebody might show up and be asking for what you're asking for.
That would make sense, because if we did it as the plans are drawn up, we would end up with 10 total.
Okay, and who is the contractor?
Tom Connolly?
I think I remember his name. I don't remember so much the site, but I think I remember the name talking to him.
So we'll have to go back and see if we allow a 10-bedroom to go in as a 4, even with the
5-bedroom.
restriction.
10 room.
10-room, I'm sorry.
And
What that means in other cases, and based on what similar decisions we've made before, to make sure it's consistent.
so your house was built in 2000,
Mhm.
correct? So it's probably Title V compliant fully
For a 4-bedroom.
for a 4-bedroom. So maybe you want to take a look at the septic plan and see what it might entail to get that other bedroom added in, if it could be even feasible. And take a look at going that route as well, just to
Oh,
know,
I see.
just to know your
Title V.
options.
So you'd have to be compliant with local regs and Title V to get the 5-bedroom.
It would be essentially increasing the system by about 20%.
Yeah. And they're all mounted over there, probably.
Is that in the new section? I assume it's in the new section.
Yeah, 2000.
The Apple
It
Dior?
is the Apple Dior
Okay.
section.
Or Apple de Pour, that's what they call the whole section.
And otherwise, I think in the past, there's been, you guys made somebody take the heat out of a room?
Yeah, see, there's things that come in on
Ah.
finishing basements, and those are the types of issues, and this is a little bit more complicated, because you've got the finished basement already,
Right.
and we've had a lot of them come
And a
in
finished attic.
from the
Turkey.
new builds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're doing all
So
this
we got
work.
there's a lot of people coming in, and we're trying to be really careful about being consistent.
Mhm.
So if you're doing all this work and spending all the money, it might make it worth it just look into what it would
Yeah.
take to increase the capacity of your septic system while you're doing this. So in the end run,
That's a good
you
idea.
have this 5-bedroom house with all these great
Yeah.
add-ons and bonuses to sell down the road.
Okay. We can definitely look into that.
Yeah, then you don't even have to come visit us, right, if it's fully compliant.
They'd have to make it compliant, so they'd end up with a permit for an
Yeah.
expanded system.
But we wouldn't have to give you a variance.
Yep.
Okay. We can look into that and see.
So you're saying that it might be better for her just, you said when you sell it, you'll upgrade it to maybe a 5-bedroom. But what you're saying is maybe upgrade it now. and
Yeah,
then you won't
I'm
have to-
sorry, I misspoke, because you can't do it if you need a variance. If you don't need a variance, then you can do it. I said that you couldn't upgrade from a 4 to a 5. But that's only if you need a variance. If you're fully compliant with all the regulations, you don't need a variance, and you can just get a permit and do it. Is that clearer? Mike? I don't think I was very clear the first time.
Okay. All right, so.
So she should, do you have plans for your septic system?
They're probably on
So they're
file.
on file?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the,
they're on
the
file
permit
with
and the
town.
plans are on file here at the office, so they can make a copy of both for you. And then you can talk to your contractor or an engineering contractor about what it would take to actually increase the system size, so that you'd have a 5-bedroom septic system. That would be an important piece of information you'd want to have.
Yeah.
So,
And that just might be easier when it comes to room count, because if you've already got 5, then we don't have to worry about what is your attic, what is the addition, what is your bedroom, what is your basement.
Price per square foot in Littleton right now, I'm sure you'll get your money's worth.
Yeah.
Out of this house, no. Unfortunately, we've put so many. We've added on to this house already. We've already put on. Yeah, we did the porch. We put on a pool. And
Well, that's all.
Sounds nice.
the kitchen. But we're not planning to sell it for a while. This is our forever house, and our boys are 2, 3, and
Ah,
Yeah.
7.
Oh,
So we're
yeah.
planning to stay
Yeah.
for a good while.
it sounds like a nice place. I mean, a fun place, I should say, especially the attic.
Pool in the backyard and tunnels in the attic.
Yes.
Boy's dream come true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
then
you.
I will, I guess so my next steps then would be find out how much it would cost to do. Find out
Go
about
to
this.
the,
Get your plan, get your septic
plan.
plan and see what it's for, and then,
And then
talk
go
to your
from there.
contractor.
So you're across from Montavi?
Hmm?
Are you across from Montavi? Your neighbor? No?
Yes,
And Ed Mullen?
I had to think because we have,
Oh, I know what
I
you're
know
the way
where you
that
were.
the way that it's laid out, there's like 5 different people that we consider our neighbors. but
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they've done some really cool things with houses over there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is it the
Thank
house
you.
on the corner of, is it Old Farm, or?
It's on, it's on the horseshoe of Grist Mill.
Here's 2A, and it's right here.
No, she's not on Snow Drive, she's on Grist Mill.
Oh,
That was the last
gosh.
one.
I'm so sorry. I'm in the wrong one.
So we're on Grist
I
Mill?
didn't realize.
We
That
are
sounds- the house
on,
that's
so
there
Grist
has
Mill
been
is like
added
a
on.
horseshoe.
Mhm.
We're at the top of the horseshoe. The new Macintosh neighborhood
looking
that
at the
they
wrong
built.
place.
Oh, okay.
Is in our backyard.
Oh, okay.
What's
All right.
the?
Who'd you buy your house
Grist
from?
Mill, 72.
Do you remember?
Rick.
All right.
Remember, we bought it in 2009.
Okay.
Aaron and Jill are your neighbors.
Yeah, yeah, they are. Yeah, we love Aaron and Jill. Yeah, we
Yeah,
were-
so you're not near Montavi.
We were joking that we should have just bought their house and just built a whole new house because we're doing so much to ours.
Oh, so your lot's big enough where you might be able to do that then?
I think it's about an acre.
Yep, that means that we won't have to just get rid of our lawn and redo it because our lawn is so nice now.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to.
Yep.
But Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope that was helpful.
Good luck.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
I'm looking in the wrong part of town. Okay, so next on the agenda is continued discussion, proposed regulation changes, and we're lucky to have Jim Gareffi here this evening to talk to us
Whoa.
about this.
What an introduction. What an introduction.
And so Jim provided us with some comments. And Kevin, you want to go
Sure.
over, do you want to take the lead on this one? Just kind of lead the discussion with Jim.
You guys maybe didn't get a copy of Jim's comments. It
No,
was,
I didn't.
okay.
I didn't either.
It was, or this morning they came across, so.
Yeah.
So for the Regulation 3, the reserve area, Jim wrote down that in general, he believes having separate areas for primary and reserve is a good thing from a construction standpoint, and couldn't speak to the value of 10 feet offset between system areas. 10 feet between system areas, I don't know why that was in there?
A lot of towns would do that, 10 feet. I mean, to me, you see a lot of trenches between trenches.
Yeah.
And everything's built in fill, and unless they compact it really well,
Mhm.
it's hard to get that spacing left between to actually have the reserve area. I mean, we have people who build trench boxes because I've told them, this is, your reserve areas between, they need to be tight.
Mhm.
So, I'm a big fan of separate areas just for that reason.
Right, okay. Regulation 4, groundwater elevation. Quote, "Here are my thoughts on this section. As proposed, Title V requires 2 soil evaluation holes in the primary and reserve areas, and these holes need to be dug regardless of the time of year. The results of these soil evaluation holes, groundwater modeling must be the basis for the groundwater offset unless the actual groundwater observed is higher." And I think we're in agreement with that, and we just feel that the groundwater that's observed will be higher in those months.
In 30 years, not really.
Okay.
Not been my experience. But
Can I ask you some questions before we get really involved in this?
Yep.
So you've been working with the town for many years?
Been in Littleton 11, Neshoba 30.
Okay. So the regulations have been changed several times in the past 4 years.
Yep.
So do you know the history of why they've changed so many times?
It was driven by board members.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it hasn't been it's been the boards that have decided to change for whatever reason.
So you don't know the reasoning of each little
No,
regulation?
unfortunately not, no.
Does it seem like they were making it less strict or more strict by changing and repealing things? 6 of one, half dozen of
I
another.
mean, yeah, I mean, it's, you used to have extremely restrictive bedroom count, which has benefited some people these days, because when we get down to these bedroom counts, you know, people who have put in 6-bedroom septic systems back in the late 80s, early 90s, because that's kind of, the regulations drove them that way. Today, when they come in with a 13-room house, it's like, yeah, you can do that, because the septic system's sized appropriately. It's not always a benefit if you had to put that system in at that time. So getting rid of that and bringing it back to Title V was a lot more realistic than the way it used to be. And not only did you have, it was a crazy chart, I think you actually have the chart in here.
Distances.
No, the chart for the number of bedrooms.
Oh, right.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
It used to say that any room that exceeded either 275 or 300 square feet was considered 2 rooms.
Oh.
Those are the local regs?
That was, yeah.
They used to say that, yeah.
Yeah. So that was, to me, that was a really realistic thing to kind of say, yeah, I don't think we can do that. And Title V changed too. Title V was a little less clear what counted for bedrooms, and so you would often get a house that had, 3 bedrooms, a sewing room, a library, a den, and then half a dozen other rooms. So Title V says, we don't care what the rooms are. Once you get over 8, this is how you're going to determine the number of bedrooms. And that's, I think, again, I didn't remember the address right away, but as soon as you said the contractor, we'll count those rooms, and no matter what you use them for, if you got 10 rooms, it's a 5-bedroom house, according to the.
So that's basically the rule you go by, is the
That's-
number of
that's
rooms
fine.
divided by 2.
Yep.
And then round down.
Yeah.
Round down.
Round down, so in a 5-bedroom system, you have 11 rooms in the house, but no more than 5 bedrooms.
Mhm.
Things like the retaining walls, allowing retaining walls, which the code, Title V allows. So when I say the code, it's Title V. You didn't allow them for a while, except for repairs. Having allowed them has made a big difference in what's able to be developed in town. So that's a significant change as far as construction goes.
Did you have a comment on that one? On the,
Yes.
So allowing the walls to be put in has,
Going back to Title V essentially, which allows walls, has
It
made a
does.
difference in, yeah.
and we didn't.
You did, yeah.
Huh.
So, yeah, Tim's comment on that was Regulation 23, will impervious barriers be allowed for upgrades? And I think we all agreed the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, that's,
Just like it was 10 years ago. And then he had a recommendation on the dimension of the blocks used for retaining walls and upgrades.
yeah, it's just a matter of not locking yourself into a specific size. I just don't know what
Got
the
it.
block sizes are.
Right.
But if that's the right
Change,
size you think is sturdy enough and heavy enough to
With-
kind of hold things,
Yeah.
then if you use that as a minimum, then anything bigger than that would work.
Okay. Interlocking concrete blocks with dimensions no smaller than 18 by 24 by 20. Did you have anything else, Louise, that you wanted to talk about before I keep going?
Not specifically yet.
Okay.
I just didn't know what, it seemed like every 2 years it
Yeah.
was changing.
Yeah, I'm
This
not
was-
quite sure why it was, but
Yeah.
they were, I mean, it was board-driven, though, it wasn't me. We like stability and regulations.
Things not to change.
Yeah.
So, on the impervious barriers, we need to change the wording there, so that that's only for new builds, right?
Yeah, well, it says,
Maybe it's only modifying the,
retaining walls. Where is it?
So I guess the reason for my question was, it says are not permitted. So, I don't know if you wanted to put a qualifier for upgrades and new construction.
Well, it
so-
says, it calls out impervious barriers, any impervious barriers such as, but not limited to clay, polyfabric sheets, and block walls, and building foundations used for breakout grading purposes around soil absorption systems for new construction are not permitted.
oh, it's right there. I'm sorry, I didn't see it either. So we just maybe clarify in there that it would be
Allowable for
allowable
upgrades?
for upgrades. Then it's really crystal clear.
I guess I just didn't see the new, so that's.
Yeah, it's small, very small.
Well, I should have done the type up when I was typing into it, but I didn't.
Yeah, you think?
You know, they have that technology, but, well, this is the size I got it in, so I kept it
Yeah,
the same.
I know, we did
Yeah,
too.
we did too, and
No, but I mean, I could have, at least on the screen while I was working on it, made it bigger.
There's also part of the subsection repealed, the 2011 regulation 23 flagging. Why don't we want to prior to notifying the abutters about flagging?
Which one is this,
Where are
regulation
23,
23?
23.
the one, two,
Oh,
three,
down
fourth
D.
column, yeah. It was changed to, I assume, flagging, the limit of work shall be delineated to the satisfaction of the Littleton Board of Health or its agent prior to notifying the butters. And the change that Kevin's proposing is limit the work shall be delineated to the satisfaction of the Littleton Board of Health or its agent prior to any work on the facility.
Oh, that's a good point. So it should be prior to
And
notifying the
including
butters.
including the abutters.
Yeah. So that the abutters know exactly where it's going, rather than.
Mhm. Yeah.
Does
would
that
be-
work, though?
Well, what's work on the facility? Is that digging test holes?
You know, and who has to flag it? Is it the homeowner just go out and flag where the system's gonna go, or do you want the engineer to come out and stake it? If the
Yeah.
engineer's staking it, there's a charge involved.
Mhm.
And-
Well, I mean, it should be an engineer, I think, if there's a butters in there,
Sure.
a question about it, then the butter should be aware, it should be translucent, or what's transparent to everybody what's going on, rather
Yeah.
than
Sure.
saying, oh yeah, it's over there.
Also-
Well, if it's in here, they should be doing it, right?
So in this case here, they haven't been flagging it, because you get a plan. Most of these cases where it's that close to a property line, there's enough monumentation, whether it's the house or another structure or fences or whatever, that you have a pretty good sense of where things are. So,
Also, limit of work, so work would be the actual structure that's put in, but the work area is bigger than that. So, because you'd have construction equipment coming in. So I don't know if we want to say, do we mean limit of work? Or do we mean the limit of the footprint of the
Structure.
infrastructure?
I guess I would
Say
think
work.
it would be the footprint, because
Yeah,
that's the thing
footprint.
Yeah,
that somebody might
so-
be concerned with.
Yeah, but wouldn't you be concerned with the whole area?
Well, then you'd have to have access, how the equipment would access.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think if you're concerned about fill within the lot line, once they place the fill, they're gonna grade it out and loam and seed it, or walls, or whatever they're gonna do on their way out, or depending how the construction goes. So it's gonna be restored, if you will, at some point, at some level, so. They won't just leave a mess, in most cases, they'll kind of grade it off
Yeah.
and wall it, or whatever they're gonna do.
So the footprint of the system shall be delineated.
The footprint of the system, I guess system would be anything that would, well, not just the system, but like you said, if the footprint of the whole facility, because if they had grading out, is that considered part of the system?
for my purposes. I mean, for the purposes of this specific
You think
regulation,
system
it
is
is.
okay?
yeah.
So the work, actually, it's the work shown on the plan.
Oh,
Basically.
that's a good point. That's what it is. It's a footprint of the work shown on the plan.
Not
Yeah.
any roads that are used to bring fill in or.
Yeah.
Again, sometimes they'll have to make a temporary access road, but they'll take that out generally when they're done.
That's what we have to do.
And they can't do that on somebody else's property, so it'll just be on the.
Not unless they get permission.
Yeah. Okay.
That requires notifying them.
Yeah.
Yes, preferably.
You can't just arrive.
Preferably.
Well, you could, but somebody's gonna.
Did you have anything else on that one?
No,
I can blow it up too, Lisa, if you wanna.
no, I got my glasses tonight.
Okay, can we go back to Regulation 3?
Mhm.
So in 2007, it starts out, "A reserve area of at least equal capacity suitable for subsurface sewage disposal, and upon which no permanent structures will be constructed, must be provided for all sewage disposal systems." And so you're proposing the new one to not have any of that wording.
No, it says that.
No, proposed, it takes out that sentence. Starts here.
Yours starts with,
You
"The
have an
reserve area
old-
must be 10 feet away
I
from."
think you have an older copy.
This one here?
So
Is
you're
that-
proposing to go back to what was in 2007?
Correct.
This is the updated one.
Oh,
You know,
this is,
as part of the, trying to get
Maybe we should
everybody on the
date it.
same page, and
print
um,
out this one.
when
with
stuff goes
Jean's.
out, we should have a protocol, like if we're sharing something like this, so if something's going to Shelley or Jim, I think it should get copied to the whole board. Any correspondence from any board member into Shelley or Jim gets copied to the board. How's that?
Let me just check
Any
something
updates?
because
Yeah.
So a CC on the email. And then everybody will know what's going on.
She did send,
She sent it in an
She sent
email.
out the packet, but it looked so similar to what we had that I didn't print it out.
Okay.
yeah, it was in the packet. That
But I
was
mean,
emailed.
just as
So I
a
did the same thing.
just
Yep.
as practice. if
Well,
we
we're supposed to
copy.
just send it to Shelley, and then she distributes. Because otherwise, it's
I don't know if we have to do that.
Yeah, because of the,
meeting law.
Yeah, open meeting law.
Yeah, but if we're not discussing it, I don't think it comes under the meeting law.
Yeah, but
no,
you
she's,
didn't need to prove somebody you weren't discussing it. So if you were passing emails around,
What
that's
if-
essentially discussing it.
Really?
Well, you're sharing information.
yeah.
That's not discussion, though.
I guess that's an
'Cause I know
argument
different
an
board-
argument you'd have with the Secretary of
I
State's
know.
office.
Well, okay, yeah,
I think to keep it clean, if you go through Shelley, she sends it back out to everybody and.
yeah. Okay.
So, do we want to make copies of the updated one so everybody has
You
it
know,
in front of
that
them?
would be great.
We have
'cause,
access to the.
We have the key, yeah.
So Lisa's gonna be leaving, right, Lisa?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah.
What do
So
we
we
want to
can-
accomplish with these tonight?
Well, I think while we have Jim here, we should just quickly run
Yeah,
through.
yeah, okay.
Um,
We do have a quorum without Lisa here.
Yeah.
okay.
But I did have
But-
a
so,
question, I did have
whatever
a
you
question, and
want.
I'd like to be involved in the discussion maybe another time on the Regulation 18, the non-municipally owned sewage treatment facilities.
Mhm.
So before you go on to that, there's plenty more, we can do this that one at another date.
Well, if we do it in another date, we're gonna be pushing our public meeting and pushing these out. So
So
we
you're
wanna
gonna get through all of them tonight?
Well, we don't, I mean, I don't want to set it, I don't want to be rushing through this just because of a public meeting. I
Yeah,
want to
okay.
have everything
Yeah, no, that's fine.
talked out and.
I just wanted to throw that
Gone
out there,
over.
depending on what our schedule
Yeah.
is, so it sounds
So I
like
don't know
we
if you
need
wanna
to-
jump ahead, or if you wanna just.
Yeah, we
do-
can
I think we
talk
should
about
jump
that
ahead, yeah.
while you're here.
Okay.
So Jim actually had some comments on that. DEP regulates treatment plants, and their permitting is done under the groundwater discharge permitting process. This process doesn't require local involvement, witnessing testing, inspections, and permitting. Before DEP worked out the standards and procedures for treatment plants, Board of Health would enact this regulation. The process is now well established. Treatment plants provide a far better effluent quality prior to its discharge to the ground. Is there a particular issue with the use of plants in town? So I think the only thing that we were sort of hoping to get is some sort of like reports of
You
existing.
do get the reports.
Okay, so who does those reports?
So each one of the entities that has a
Assistant.
treatment plant has
They
an
do it
engineering,
themselves.
does operation and maintenance, and it's done by, Swiss here in town does a lot of them.
Okay.
Small water system. There's a handful of engineering firms. Martin Edge, I think, does the schools. Actually, I think that's changed. I think Martin Edge does IBMs. Forget who does the schools. So they're done by a variety of contractors, and they submit them at the regularity at which the state requires, depending on your system size.
Once a year.
No, and some of the bigger systems, it's monthly. Yeah, so IBM's is probably monthly.
So who reviews those? We're responsible for compliance? The
No,
board?
DEP is. So we look at them from time to time to see if there's any kind of issues, but it's DEP's. The groundwater discharge permit is DEP's jurisdiction.
So do we have any of our systems that are out of compliance?
I'd have to go back and take a look.
Because I guess the Board of Health is still responsible for making sure that there's not a health issue here.
So you certainly can do in addition to.
Yeah.
When there's been issues with treatment plants, I will typically pick up the phone and call DEP and say, one of your systems isn't working.
Right, so my question was, if the reports are coming in, who's reviewing them, and how do we make sure that they're being,
When I've had time, I'll review them, but I haven't,
right?
quite frankly.
So if,
I do get filed. I think they're in the cabinet just.
if something was out of compliance, then we wouldn't know it.
No, but DEP, again, is the ultimate enforcement authority on those, and so
Are they reviewing them?
sometimes they do.
So-
What ends up happening is you'll see a notice of noncompliance come through.
Yeah.
So DEP might wait 6 months and see, maybe you're not meeting the nitrate level for 6 months,
Yeah.
and they'll say, fix it.
So I guess my concern is that we might have, theoretically, we could have a system that's not compliant, and we don't have regular review of their reporting to make sure that's happening.
So I can certainly start reviewing them.
Do you have time to do that, though?
No, but I'll figure I'll put it in some place and just we'll set it up. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I
wonder-
get some of them emailed, so right now I put them in a folder. I put 'em
I
in a
did
folder.
ask, I saw one come through, and, one thing that makes it easier, if the report is done correctly, and the one I saw wasn't.
They all do it differently.
But you can ask them to give it to you in a certain format, so that it's easy.
Well, so they do a lot of e-filing now with DEP. So you'll see some of them actually will submit that e-filed format. Each one of the engineering, what's important to me is getting the groundwater discharge, the values of the testing.
Well,
That
yeah,
listed
so they
numbers.
have to have their criteria, and they have to have and the one I saw didn't have that.
Yeah, not all of them do.
So, but they should be doing that, so somebody should be calling them up and saying,
We could certainly ask.
do it right. It'll make it a lot easier
Yeah.
in the long run.
Well, I mean, most of the plants have to be 30/30, so 30 TSS, 30 DOD, and 10 milligrams per liter nitrogen. Shaker Lane's a little different. The
Yeah.
school is a little different. It's like 30/30/25. Actually, 30/30/19. These are the discharge limits of a lot. The new plant on the apartments and houses probably has a stricter regime. IBM has a fairly strict regime and report more things. So depends on the size of the plant sometimes.
Yeah.
And on the things that they're reporting. So I can certainly make it a habit of having to put them all in monthly and review them.
Or maybe, I also asked Keith for a description, he didn't give it to us in that email, but the job description for the administrative assistant, because I don't know what it is. And so job description and responsibilities, so that might be something that should come under the administrative assistant too, under your guidance, so
Sure.
that you wouldn't have to do it.
Again, it's just, you never know when you come into the office, what you're going to see at any given time, so.
Yeah, okay. I
But
just didn't want to have a system out of compliance and nobody knowing about it.
No, I mean, DEP will catch up with them.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes, probably one of the best examples, Jim Clyde was going down 495 one day, and how he saw this, I don't know, but he looked back, and the nursing home that was discharging, you could see it discharging. So he came in and says, "You know it's discharging?" He says, "No, I'll give DEP a call." So we.
Discharging to ground?
Yeah, the leach field was failed, so.
Ah, wow.
So it's, sometimes it's, I didn't, like I said, I don't know how he saw that, but far better eyes than I did, so.
Okay, so
Or
he-
maybe he works in
Maybe
town.
he should be
He
reviewing
knows
them.
everything, that guy.
He's just, that just caught his eye.
Yeah.
He's,
But they've since fixed that, I mean, that was a bunch of years ago, they since
Yeah.
fixed that, they're fine now, so. So again, the question was, I wasn't sure if there was an issue with plants in town, and.
Not yet, and we just want to make sure there
Sure.
isn't.
Yeah.
I had heard that there might be. I don't know for sure, so I'm not gonna say it here.
You know, if there's an occasional exceedance, monthly exceedance.
Yeah.
It might happen, but sometimes in the wintertime, it's a little harder to do the nitrogen reduction, just because the bacteria that like to do that don't like the cold weather.
Yeah.
Or there's not enough carbon in the sun. I mean, so, some of the better reports tell you, they actually give you a description of, they open up the tank and they see what the liquids are looking like, and they tell you your pH, and they'll tell you what they've had to add. And so, I mean, some of them are much more descriptive and informative than others, so.
Okay. Okay, and that's why I don't want to say anything, because it could be just hearsay.
Yeah,
Or somebody looking at data like this rather than like this.
sure.
So my question was, this has nothing to do with the possibility of sewering in the common, the non-municipally owned sewage treatment
That would be a
facility?
municipally owned one at that point,
Okay.
I believe, so.
Okay, all right. All right, that was my concern, because I want to leave that those options open without us already putting restrictions and regulations on it as an option for the town. So, all right, great. Carry on.
Yay.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Oh, you going on vacation?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, right now?
No, Thursday night, but I'm so far behind. Nothing
Well, have
done.
fun.
Thanks. Thank you. See ya.
See you later.
Bye, Louise. Did I bring everything? Kevin, you have my pen.
Can I bring it back to you? Okay, thanks. So just going back to the regulation for the groundwater elevation, Jim doesn't think the testing in those months makes much difference as far as the high water.
For the accuracy of it, it's, the modeling truly has been a far more accurate way of doing it. The possible exception is areas of sandy soil, sometimes that, so there are a few of the towns, and I'm not even sure which ones they are, I just hear the agents talking about it, where they leave the option in there to require in-season groundwater testing if they think there's an issue with what they're seeing modeling-wise. So if you're concerned about, geez, what do we do if we're not comfortable with this number, we'd like to see it during groundwater season, you could do something like that. The only problem is you're kind of, trying to think of when we get, February is probably a dry month this year. And April is probably a wet month. October is probably a dry month. So, I mean, it's, depending on the weather, and that's why the modeling seems to be a more consistent, accurate way to do that. And I think that's why they moved away from the in-season.
In-season.
Yeah, because, I mean, every once in a while you do soil testing in a dry year, and boards would say, geez, it's dry this year, we're gonna add a foot to the groundwater offset. So you can look at old regulation, like early 80s, and you'll see that, in May, maybe it was a 5-foot offset, and in March it was a 5, April was a 6, May was a 7, just because they were trying to, and if you got stuck in a wet May, man, you got clobbered, because all of a sudden, and so you're trying to guess at what the right elevation was, where the modeling it's conservative, and it bumps systems up. And it's funny, you open up a system during a wet time and go, well, yeah, we got that one right.
Yeah.
Oh, has that been your experience?
It has been, yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we should go by, is the modeling then, huh, not the...
And because of Title V, that's what they dictate doing. If you were looking for that added protection in areas where you're concerned that maybe you're not getting it completely, I mean, you could add that on there. And
I think part of the concern is going back to wetlands, and we're going to talk to the Concom about
Yeah.
this, about, what our board's responsibilities are and how we're working, like separately, but together, really. In that, if you've got areas and you've got changing groundwater table and changing precipitation patterns, you could have new wet areas that modeling might not necessarily pick up, because that would,
So if the
Take
area
some
was
time.
considered a wetland, you wouldn't be able to do anything with it.
yeah, but then you get into what the definition of a wetland is.
So this is how I tell people how I deal with CONSCOM.
Yeah.
And Amy and I work well together. I mean, if I
Yeah.
have a question, I ask her. I always say, they determine where the wetlands line is, and I do my offsets from that. So they make that determination, I do the offsets.
The Concom,
Yep.
yeah.
I don't get into making the determination of
Yeah,
water.
no, and I can understand why.
Yeah.
But as far as giving somebody a variance, and the difference between modeling and in a wet season, wet area, basically.
So, again, Title V has you using modeling as a groundwater.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what the concern is that was driving that.
Okay.
And so it would be that you've got an area that's, soggy, basically, soggy wet, with the water table up,
Yep.
and maybe not draining, because we're having increasing precipitation. And if you
I'm trying
go
to
out,
think if I saw something like that, yeah.
if you go out in the dry season, you might not see it. I don't know.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
a concern,
I mean,
though.
the modeling is clear, a clear gray
No.
line, right? And
No, sometimes very clear, sometimes, but there's two of us kind of looking at it saying, no, I don't think so. It's like, yeah, it's right there. And so we've done enough of it in enough areas in town that I think we are comfortable with the readings that we're taking.
Yeah.
It is rare, and I'm trying to think of a case where we've done modeling and the water table's been higher.
So
Okay.
you probably pretty much know the town.
Well, you get a sense of it. If I hadn't seen it, probably one of the engineers had seen that area, and so the combination of all the different people doing the testing.
Okay, that sounds okay. I just wanted to
But again, if you want,
identify what the driver was, so that we can make sure that was covered.
if you're concerned that there may be, like I say, some sandy soils are tough, sometimes tilled soils can be tough.
Yeah.
If you wanted to add that in there, that if there's a concern about the accuracy,
Yeah, I don't know, I don't even know, I've got, on my property, it was like mud this year. But, it hasn't been in previous years.
yeah.
And I was thinking, well, if somebody's gonna put a septic system, which they wanna do, People have asked me to buy it and put a septic system on it. I'm like, you're not putting a septic system on that, because it's wet. So I'm just thinking in terms of like what a site looks like and what the outcome could be.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
you've seen more of them than I have. so.
Well, and again, if something looked like it were wet, one of the, you guys had a plan that you looked at, 107 Harvard Road. And I think the backyard probably had some soil excavation done on it. So on the far side, so if you're standing in the street looking at the house, to the left, there's an actual stream that goes down to the back. So
Yeah.
that's truly the wetlands. Whether it was dug out at some point in the time in the past, in the middle of the backyard, way in the back, there was this low wet spot. And it wasn't determined to be a jurisdictional wetland
Right.
in Massachusetts, because I checked with Amy, I said, what does this mean? So it was better to have the offset off of that, kind of push the system to the far side of that. We couldn't put the system in it, we wouldn't.
But how did you do the offset if it wasn't identified as a wetland?
I think what they did is they held the wetlands off the stream, and we kept as far away from that non-jurisdictional wetlands as possible, because we didn't want to fill it, we didn't want to put the system in it,
Yeah.
Right.
because we know there's water there all
Right, so that's exactly what we want to do, but we want to make sure that the reg is tight enough so that it drives that.
Sure, so we did the soil testing where the system was considerably higher on the banking, and the water table was still high up there.
Yeah.
Given it was kind of a weird mix of soils, but it was still 40 inches.
Okay.
Which, given the soil, you wouldn't have expected that, but it was actual water there, so it's like, okay, that's where it is. So it's nice when the two are there at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it kind of confirms right
Yeah.
then and there.
I have also another question for this regulation for, we have it separated out as for existing systems and for new construction.
Yep.
I mean, is there really a difference needed?
So the code addresses them the same way. Title V addresses them the same way. You use soil evaluation and perk tests for determining system height above water table and system sizes, whether it's an upgrade or a.
So we don't have to have this for new construction.
Where is it here?
Again, I'm not sure.
And I have the
specific-
old copy, so.
So the only little difference with an upgrade, if you've got a really small lot, the code Title V doesn't require that you show a reserve area, because you're just trying to fix what's there.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas you always need a reserve area in a new. And I think your reg says we're feasible for for upgrades, so. Like I said, we get some lots that you just hope you can find a spot to put a system on it, let alone find a reserve there.
So how do we feel about getting rid of that sentence for new construction? All observation holes shall be dug during the months of February, March, April, May, and October, when groundwater is at its maximum elevation? Because I think what we're getting at is taking that out and just going with the modeling. Is that,
It's, yeah, I mean.
that's what you're recommending?
Again,
It
it's-
sounds like that's
It's
more
been my
accurate.
experience
Yeah.
that we haven't,
Kevin, what do you think about that?
yeah, I mean, the modeling
okay
has been
with me.
pretty
Yeah, okay.
conservative, so.
And-
I'd like to keep in additional deep observation holes may be requested by Board of Health.
And we do that now. If I go up to a site and I think it's ledgy,
Yeah.
we're digging a hole.
So if we put it in here, it'll be codified and it'd
Yeah.
be easier to.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, we don't like surprises when they go to put a system in.
No, is 10 feet deep enough?
It's generally more than deep enough, you know, given where we're finding water table, as long as they can show the 4 feet of pervious soil that you need.
Okay.
And then you wanted us to take a look at that word consistent material.
So it's interesting, the code doesn't say consistent, but it does say when things are inconsistent, so if you look at that section. And I think I know what they're getting at. Consistent's one of those things everyone can argue with.
Right.
And we sometimes do. It's, I mean, there are times where I've asked for perk test deeper because I don't think you've got a consistent layer of, you know, most restrictive soil. But whether I would codify that, I don't know. But we certainly know if you get sand in one hole and till in the other hole, you gotta do the, and there's that mix, and you gotta do the perk rate in the till. So, yeah, my concern is that it opens up for interpretation and argument.
Okay.
Because like I say, you're gonna see variability in the whole
So we'll just call it 4 feet of naturally occurring.
pervious soil, yeah. I think that's how that, I always like to defer to the regulations that I'm modifying. So when someone says, what does that mean, you go back, look in the code, and you have Title V, it probably says what that is. And so you've got a ready-made definition you can default to.
Got it. Any other questions on that?
Nope.
And my point about the 2 site visits, that makes sense if you're doing groundwater holes.
Right, so if you can't perk and it's wet, then you have to do 2 site visits?
That's right, you have to come back. So it used to be, back before code changed in '96, that you do the groundwater holes in the springtime, you just log where the water table was and come back in the summer and run the perk tests. So you're always doing 2 site visits on every site. With the soil evaluation, as long as the soil's dry, you can get all your testing done in one site.
So another reason to use the modeling, it's one visit.
You know, it's a little more efficient for everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
Can I ask you a question? There's a house on Newtown Road. They're gonna have to look at it, and I'm not sure, it's right on the way to Route 2. So here's Route 2 here, and here's Newtown Road, and it's right here.
The one with the bridge?
The new one?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that in Littleton?
Yes.
What kind of septic is in there?
There's a, I believe it's Coltech or infiltrated chamber system in the backyard of Litchfield.
It's not a tight tank?
No.
Okay, that is in the middle of a wetland.
Again, I've worked with Amy pretty closely to make sure.
Well, okay. So that,
Yeah.
so
it's-
that's the kind of thing that we're trying to, we're trying to get a handle on, to make sure that that meets, that's protective of the environment and public health. And so that's why you're seeing some of the wording in there.
Yep, no, it's, certainly you're.
You know which, do you know the one I'm talking, do
Yeah.
you know which one?
I don't.
Is it a drawbridge or is it just a?
No, it's a box culvert.
Oh, over by the Route 2 exit?
Yeah, you need to look at it.
I know what you're talking about.
So there's a
I think
septic system in there.
There's some restrictions on that, like they can't mow the septic system area for like 3 years.
Okay.
Well, I just want to make a
What?
point that if you look at that site and you think about, our current regulations allowed that.
It's right in the middle of the wetlands.
I mean,
It's-
Title V would allow that, and so a lot of your regulations have defaulted back to Title V.
Okay, so my point is,
Yeah.
is that what we want? And
It's like
what
they
are we gonna
filled it
do about
in,
it?
filled in a wetland.
Yeah,
They had to put fill in for the septic system, yeah.
okay. So that's my only point. That's why we're having this discussion. I mean, that's
So-
just an example.
So your regulation, proposed regulation,
So that's why that water table thing is in there. Because
Well-
somehow that got through, and I don't know how that happened.
so the water table wouldn't necessarily address that, but
Well, the modeling must have been right at the ground surface practically.
it rises a little bit in the center of that property where the system is. So I don't know, it's probably 30 inches to water table, because it's just the way the ground rises. But you have, you were looking to possibly change the offset to wetlands?
Right.
I'm not sure exactly. That would have made a difference on, if you had a 100-foot offset to wetlands, yeah, you probably wouldn't have been able to build that lot, because the 100-foot would have overlapped.
That's a hydrology issue.
So,
On Regulation 5, Jim's comment was regarding perk rates and how will upgrades with perk rates of greater than 30 or 40 minutes per inch be handled? Will tight tanks be required, or will the board consider granting variances to this section? I mean, I think we're very open to granting variances
Okay.
for upgrades on that.
yeah, Title V allows you to use perk rates at least up to 60 minutes an
Right.
inch. Now, whether that system would fit on your site, probably not, but it also allows, so let's say you got a 60-minute perk rate, the code, depending on the combination of treatment systems and whatnot, you could get the leaching area down half the size if you use an IA system like a FAST or a JET. So there's ways to help you fit systems on sites if you need to. And again, for upgrades, you're really trying to work with the people to get some kind of a system, because whatever they have there now is awful.
Right.
So whatever you're doing is gonna be far better, and if you put an IA ahead of it, like a FAST or a JET, it actually treats the wastewater before it goes in the ground, so.
Would you be okay with granting variances as opposed to making someone put in a tight tank? Right.
I'm not sure. Like, I
I'm
feel,
so hung up on that site ever. That's.
I feel.
Oh, the Newtown Road one?
That I haven't been able to read your
Sure.
comments, so I'm not.
Yeah.
Got it.
I guess the only thing I might suggest, if you were open to variances, change that, second part of that A there, saying, or for upgrade, saying that a rate slower would be considered a failed percolation rate.
Okay.
If you want to say that the maximum, just do the maximum, then if somebody comes in and has a 40, you can say, all right, we'll grant a variance, as opposed to saying it's a failed perk.
Mhm.
Because that kind of, again, goes back to the code and says
Okay.
it's impervious and you can't use
So,
it.
Jim, let's say you have a site and you've got modeling at 4 inches below ground level.
Okay,
Or let's say within the top foot.
okay.
And because you do the site testing during a dry period, the water table is below that. And then you perk it, and it doesn't perk, so you do grain size.
So again, is this a new construction or upgrade?
Let's talk about new construction.
So you can't use a sieve on new construction?
So that Newtown site perked?
Yes. Again, if you wait long enough, you get a drought condition, water table drops.
Okay, that's my point right
Yeah.
there.
Well, but
Is that if you're doing the perk and it's not high water, it's gonna come out different.
But you don't do perk tests in wet soil, because I always use the analogy of a sponge.
So what then,
You can't get any more water in a sponge. Really, what you're trying to do with a perk
well,
is.
that's my point, though.
Yep,
Is that it's not gonna perk when it's wet.
sure, but
But
you're gonna,
that's one of the conditions that the septic system is gonna be operating on.
but you're gonna build it above the water table, so the system, so what you've done is you've determined the permeability of the underlying soil, then you've built the system up above it, so it's out of the water table.
But we're,
Based on that permeability.
but we're assuming, then why do we run a perk test? Why don't we just say, well, just put your pervious material above it?
Well, because you wanna know how big the septic system needs to be.
So if you run a perk test during a dry period, you're not accounting for a wet period.
But the way you account for the wet period is to build the system above the water table. So you know what the underlying soil is gonna perk at, so you can size the system appropriately, and then build it.
But you
based-
don't know what it's gonna perk at, because if it's wet, it's not gonna perk at the same, because you're gonna have the hydraulic pressure pushing it up.
But again, you're gonna have the system above it, so
Yeah,
it's gonna dissipate into the
But
ground.
the hydrology's still gonna change.
I would agree with you that
That's why,
the rate will be different.
that's
but-
why that groundwater table one is in there. I think we really need to think about that more. at keeping the groundwater doing the site, the perk test when you've got high water. Why wouldn't you?
You wouldn't, because again, you're trying to determine what the permeability of that dry soil is.
Well, there's permeability of the dry soil, but then there's also actual percolation rates in a natural system.
Sure, but you're building it above so that you can actually percolate that water based on that underlying soil, the size of that underlying soil, back into the ground.
But it's not gonna, that's my point, though, it's gonna perk differently back into the ground and.
Actually,
probably
putting
low-
that system down in sand, so it's gonna perk a lot more quickly back to the
But once it hits a water table, if the water table's here or here, it's gonna perk differently.
but you've got it
But
4
it's
feet
all
above.
above.
Yeah, you've got it 4 feet above in new construction at least, or 5, depending on the soil type, and at least 2 on any repair, because you have to be at least 2.
Okay, I guess I'll have to think about it some more.
Okay, yeah.
I just don't want that to happen. Like,
Well, like I say,
I
that.
mean, really, how is it a buildable lot if it's so
it-
wet like that?
It is. It got to be built somehow.
Yeah. It's-
Something's in there that allows it, so I think we just have to be
Again,
really
that-
cognizant about that.
That offset to wetlands wouldn't have allowed that if that was 100 feet.
So we should put that in.
Well, again, I'm not advocating one way or the other, but you ask what would have made a difference
We're
there.
asking your advice.
That would,
So you have a lot that wouldn't perk on high water, but it perks at low water.
so let's
So
say,
why wouldn't we require a perk at high water?
Worst case
At
scenario.
least we know what the yeah.
so Cobb Farm is an area of sandy soil, very sandy soil, but it's a high water table. So if you require them to do the perk test during high water table, you probably wouldn't have been able to build anything out there.
Well, that's the perk, though.
But it's not. The
But it
perk's done in
is.
the dry time. So
But that's not representative of conditions during high water, and there is high water there.
according to Title V, that's how you run the test.
Well, that's how we get local regulations for environmental and public health protection.
Well, so, again, the general law that allows you to make regs, one
Yeah.
of the things you need to actually state, because you have to have the hearing posted 2 weeks
Yeah.
out, then a week out. One of the things they need to have you say is the Board of Health needs to state at the public hearing the local conditions that exist that your reason's based on for asking for the,
Well, yeah, I think that's,
yeah, so,
I mean, we're not suggesting that's doable.
so. But yeah, if you require people to perk wet soil, nothing would perk. Even sand doesn't perk.
Well, nothing would perk. Well, wet soil, right. But the thing is that if we're going to give, I mean, we should have something that's representative of worst-case scenario conditions. If it doesn't perk, it doesn't perk.
So built into the percolation rate is the soak time. So when you run a perk test, you soak it for 15 minutes. And again, in the code, it talks about that kind of simulating wet times. So you wet the soil just before you run the test, then you run the test based on the procedures in the code.
But it's that, okay. The area is still not going to perk if it's wet.
You're right.
That's the point.
No area.
That's my,
Not
but
sand, not
that's my
till,
point,
yeah.
that area is going to be wet during a period of every single year, and we're not taking that into account.
But you don't take it into account for any soil, because no soil would pass if it were wet.
Well,
Perking.
but that's my point. Some sites, if that water table's too high, it doesn't perk.
So you
It does
wouldn't-
not perk at high water.
So would you not have, I don't know, 2/3 of the town built on?
2/3 of the town?
There's a lot of wet out there.
What? I think we'd have to think about if that's a real, Number.
You know, based on what I'm seeing when I go do soil testing, I mean, it's rare to see something that's much lower than 4 feet in a lot of the areas of town. Durkee Farm, most of that was in that 18 inches to 36-inch water tables. You know, Sanderson Farm.
but what we're talking about is something that comes up at high water. So you're saying that the modeling is showing up in the top foot in the whole town, or 2/3 of the
No,
town?
no, I'm saying is, if you were using groundwater, if you were requiring that perk test be done when the groundwater was high,
Which is modeling.
it is indicative of, you know, if you read the code, it's where water table is 9 times out of 10 years kind of thing, yeah. I mean, that's how they base it.
The modeling.
The water table's there to create that modeling.
Yeah.
It's moved the
Right.
minerals in the soil enough to
Yeah.
cause that to happen.
Yep.
So if you are requiring somebody to go out and do that when that water is in that strata,
At the modeling.
yeah, then, yeah, I'm gonna say that most soils, even wet sands, you're not gonna get any more water. in
So
wet
you're
sand.
seeing modeling at a depth that wouldn't allow perk testing.
So if you, again, kind of go back to the difference between the groundwater season and modeling. Modeling we do, this time of year it's dry. I go out and do modeling and the soil's dry, but we say the water table's
Right,
40
because
inches.
that's indicative of the high water table.
That's right, but the soil itself is actually dry at this point, so they can
Right.
run a perk test in it.
Yeah,
If you wanted us to actually run a perk when that water was at 42 inches, I'm saying that most things would pass at that point.
So
okay.
you're saying 2/3 of the town?
It just based
No,
on what.
Yeah, but their systems are all raised
That's
above
right.
that.
So what you're trying to do is you're trying to determine what the underlying permeability of the natural soil is. That's why you do it when it's dry. And then to account for the water table, you build that system up, but you use that sizing rate for the underlying soil.
So what you're saying is that the modeling level, the depth of modeling in 2/3 of the town, if that was water table, wouldn't allow a perk test?
If you're requiring them to do the actual perk test when that water was at that level, yeah, you probably wouldn't be able to build on it, because the water would be in the perk hole. And like I say, that wet sponge just doesn't take any more water.
So it's at a height, it's at a depth below ground surface that wouldn't allow a perk test?
That's right, again, because Title V says
Saturated.
you need to run the perk test in the most restrictive layer of soil. And typically that's, down 4 feet, 3.5 to 4.5 feet.
3.5 to 4, and okay, so you're saying modeling, 2/3 of the town modeling's in the top 3 feet? Okay, that's.
I mean, that's a generalization, but it's not that far off.
Yeah,
I mean, anything you've seen in the neighborhood, have you seen much below 4 feet?
I mean, my house is 10, 11 feet,
That's right, so there's
But
those
it
sections of town.
changes.
Yeah, there's those sections of town, yeah.
18 inches over by Long Lake in some spots, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, just across the street from you, up a little bit, it's different,
Right.
because the soil changes through that neighborhood as you go over towards Spartanburg.
Okay.
So, this is a house we did a repair on a few down and back. It's actually raised. It's on the left-hand side of the house. Water was probably at 48 inches or something like that.
Oh, really?
Sandy-ish, but perk rates in the teens, tillage soil, so. Well, you know where the entrance to Whitetail Farm is, right?
yep,
And then the conservation land right after it,
yeah,
two very different soils.
yeah.
It's sand
Very
there,
close
sand
section.
across the street, and then the conservation land's not sand or dry. It's probably wet until.
Okay.
Let's see. So, yeah. So regulation 9, Jim's comment was I would remove or modify the last sentence as these situations are covered in the Title V approval of a shared system.
Yeah, first one dropped off. This is-
Regulation 9.
So there's a whole section on the requirements for shared system,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, so that Title V does require financial and legal guarantees to ensure
Yeah,
system
and operation
inspection.
maintenance and
Okay.
inspections every 3 years for shared systems, so.
Regulation 11, subdivision of lots. Jim's comments are Title V addresses this situation in the section of division and aggregation of facilities. Recommend defaulting to this section and remove the last sentence as increases in flow to an existing system will require the applicant to prove that system would be in full compliance with Title V and your regulations.
Think of the woman who was here tonight, you guys were saying, geez, if you want to do an increase in flow,
Mhm.
one of the ways to do it is put a system in full compliance. And,
Mhm. So would you just default to Title V on this entire section or just remove this last?
So the way I read that last line is that if somebody came in and wanted to increase the flow, what you're asking for is just a Title V inspection.
Right.
And just to kind of give you some of the differences of the level of information, a Title V system, for it to pass, your septic system just needs to be above the water table.
Mhm.
Whereas
Half
if-
inch, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Whereas if you're going to do new construction, increased flow, it has to meet full compliance, which is 4 feet above, right? So, I don't think that it serves well, because you really need to do much more if you're going to do that increase in flow on that.
Okay.
But yeah, the rest of it, I'd default to division aggregation.
Okay.
And we kind of do that now, so if somebody's looking to come in, someone mentioned the 9 lots on Foster Street. So one of the things they had to do as part of that subdivision is put a new system in from the house,
Okay.
because that system,
And show reserve for that?
yeah. They don't necessarily, because it's considered a repair, so it's a failed system with a repair. But I think they may have, I have the plans, I haven't opened them up yet to take a look at what it look like, but.
All right. So Jim's recommending we just default to Title V on the Regulation 11.
Okay.
I think it, again, I think it covers all the things you're looking for, plus
Okay.
kind of clarifies that increase in flow thing.
Got it. Definition of bedroom, reverting to Title V. Design requirements, reverting to Title V. We talked about sewage treatment facilities. So maybe what we'll do is just put a note in about the levels, and then see if we can put language in there about inspections, or reviewing the reports, or having our admin
So,
sort of help with that.
I mean, I'll do, I mean, I'll do that, I mean, that's not a big deal, you just can say to me, review the reports.
Yeah, maybe we can do like a quarterly
Yeah.
meeting and just
Yeah.
figure it
I
out.
mean,
Yeah,
that's-
that would be good.
I mean, I could do something like look at all of them and send you the ones that are out of compliance.
Yeah,
Um,
I just want to make it easy for you. You
No,
know,
no,
I
just-
I think if they're not in a good format, you should tell the people giving them to that they have to change it.
So, and I completely agree, except that they have to submit them to DEP, who's the enforcement authority. So if DEP says, send them in an electronic format, I guess I could have them recreate a report for us too, but
Yeah.
they're already submitting to this.
Well, like I said, the one that I saw didn't have the criteria in it, so it was,
Yeah.
and it didn't have a summary table.
No. I mean, and-
That doesn't take that much to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's their job,
Yeah.
not yours. I mean,
Make your life easier.
Yeah, make your life easier.
So,
Okay. So the next one, Regulation 20 on ledge. Jim recommends we use the definition in Title V for unsuitable material, as it included the items you mentioned.
Again, as opposed to recreating something,
Yep.
call it unsuitable, then it matches up with Title V and.
Is unsuitable in Title V have a definition?
Yeah, yep. So it talks about rotted schist and broken ledge and A and B and stuff like that.
Okay.
All impervious material or organic sediments, all materials found in the following horizons, O, A, E, all bedrock including saprolite, weathered bedrock, schist, and ledge.
Okay. Got it.
Weathered bedrock, schist, and ledge?
Yeah,
Okay.
schist is, just a different type of bedrock.
Yeah, I know, it's
And-
kind of redundant the way they said it.
Yeah, I mean,
Ledge is a bedrock, too.
schist is diggable,
Yeah,
reasonably diggable, sometimes so much
it's
so
weathered
that
bedrock.
you have to get into, whereas.
Oh, schist is, I mean, it's weathered bedrock, the whole weathered. yeah.
Sure, but it's soft enough that you get in the hole and you're really like, okay, where's the schist and where's the soil?
Well, schist is, yeah, it's fine.
And I think that's maybe why they have it spelled out, because it's soft enough that you dig it, sometimes it looks like rock in place until you dig it and you go, wow, that had structure like rock, but you could dig it. And the purpose there, I mean, the reason, that rationale there for not using that is that not far underneath that is bedrock, and so when effluent hits that, it starts to travel in directions you don't know, because it's
Yeah.
now in the fissures of the bedrock. So,
And your question is, are you looking to have 5 feet of pervious soil in areas where ledge may be found, even if there's 4 feet of pervious soil? And I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
okay, so maybe if that's what you'd like, maybe you put something to the effect that in areas of ledge, the board requires 5 feet of pervious, 5 feet of pervious soil over bedrock or something, or over unsuitable material.
Okay.
That way there, it's clear to everybody, they can look at the definitions, okay, pervious says this, unsuitable means this, I need to have 5 feet of.
Oh, okay.
Again, I'm just trying to make it, so
No,
anyone
no,
who picks up
that's
the
good.
regs, they can say, okay, I
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
what they're looking for.
No, we want to have them match up, so
Yeah.
that's really good.
Yeah. It's also easy for me too when I'm explaining it to somebody.
Yeah.
So there may be a little selfishness in this.
And they don't think
Sorry?
you're making it up if it's like in the.
I had somebody come in today, was so excited, they thought they had found a way around not, slab foundations, and I was like, no, I'm not buying it. So I said, go see the board. So,
We'll look forward to that.
It's a pretty straightforward, easy one, so.
Systems partially in Littleton. Jim's comment is there a problem with the current DEP groundwater discharge program? What if the DEP grants a discharge permit for a treatment facility and the board denies the permit?
So I think I might have misunderstood this one now that I looked all the way over here.
Yeah.
I thought you were looking, let me just read that again. So, okay. Yeah, I was thinking more of, sometimes some boards, you want to have all of the systems that's required for a particular structure on the site that it serves. That's what I was thinking of.
Yep.
In that case, they wouldn't allow things like shared systems.
Right.
And I don't know if that was your intent, or are you talking about if there's part of the houses in Westward and the systems in Lunenburg, Littleton, or the other way around? Is that what you're?
Yeah, more
That
to that
was-
effect.
Okay.
And, it's, I think, basically what this reg was meant to say way back when was basically that, we just want to see
Yeah.
the systems if they're going to be in Littleton.
Yeah, so if the state approves it, we want to be able to approve it too.
Right. And I think it's unlikely
And-
the Board of Health will deny a permit already granted by DEP,
But
but.
if it's in here, we might, and so I would like to see it in there, but, after having town council. look.
I would ask them that just because
Yeah.
that'll put you in
They're
a little
gonna,
bit.
they'll look at everything anyway.
They'll put you in a little bit of a pickle sometimes.
Well, but basically, this is saying we want to say also,
Sure.
we don't want the state
Yeah.
approving something.
Yeah, it's in our town, we should
But
be able
it's
to
not
look
in
at
town.
it.
We're,
And-
we're the local arm of the DEP, and we, I think, know our environment and our town better than probably they do.
Yeah, I mean, they have a cutoff in Title V of where your jurisdiction is and
Yep.
where their jurisdiction is, and that's why I would recommend have council look at it,
Yep.
just to.
Yeah, I think I don't know if Shelley got to town council yet, but
No.
I know they'll see everything before it goes out.
Yeah. I did the
And
next one already.
23 we talked about.
Yeah.
Cleanouts every 50 feet. I don't know what plumbing code is now, but I think that's reasonable.
Plumbing code ends 10 feet outside the foundation.
Okay.
Because I was talking to a plumbing inspector today. He says, well, don't you think that? And it's like, no, it's yours, it's inside, I don't care. He just looked at me and says, that's your jurisdiction, no. So,
So is every 50 feet reasonable, or?
it depends, I mean, it certainly doesn't cost anything to do that. It depends how much pitch you have on something, depends if you're having bends in there.
Right.
If it's before the septic tank, it's probably not an unreasonable thing to ask for. If after the tank, it's mostly liquids, and you guys require filters these days, so there shouldn't be much getting in
Right.
the line after the tank, so, yeah.
An ounce of prevention, though.
Yeah.
Did you have a comment on that?
No, there was no comment on
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
it. Straightforward.
It's fine.
I'm not gonna get a ton of argument about it, and it's certainly not a, and if you do, you can certainly make the pitch that, if you're using building sewer, then I'd say yes, because you get solids in the line going to the tank. After the tank,
Yeah.
like I said, because you use filters or require filters, less of an issue with things clogging up the pipes. So it should just be all liquid going out.
And then regulation 34, Chip's comments are, suggest speaking with town council if you're going to restrict the flow and use of a particular type of development. Suggest a discussion with the planning board regarding the type of housing envisioned by this type of development, and that Title V allows the use of 150 gallons per day for two-bedroom housing for elderly units, which must be age-restricted.
So I guess what I was reacting to there on the 150, more or less, you were saying. So it's gotta be 150 if I read that right, is that?
For two-bedroom, no more, no less.
Okay, so it's gotta be 150.
150.
So, and I have a copy, I asked Mara today for a copy of that bylaw for the senior, because from talking with her, it wasn't necessarily meant to be age restricted,
Correct.
even though it has senior in it.
Right.
But if you make that requirement, it puts the two-bedroom unit in the sizing chart in Title V under housing for elderly,
Right.
which is age restricted.
And is 150 per day.
That's right.
Yeah.
So again, this is one of those town council questions. Can you restrict a type of housing allowed by it? And I just don't know because in this case here, you could have, the way it's been explained to me, people who may be disabled, but not necessarily over 55. Some of these houses are designed to be easy to get into. They're smaller, easy to get into, but you don't want to age restrict them. So in those situations, you'd really want to be able to use the 220, the design flow of 220.
So that's probably why they would not have a gallons per day limit or an age limit.
Well, they don't have it in the bylaw, I don't think. They just
Exactly.
say,
That's what I mean.
I think they say 2-bedroom. And so when I hear 2-bedroom, unless it's age restricted, it's 220 gallons a day, 110 gallons per bedroom. If you use the 150, in the code it actually has a type of unit. It's a housing for elderly. And that is age restricted because it ties to some HUD definition of what age restricted housing is.
I don't know if we should have the,
I mean, I would talk to, if you were considering it, I guess I would talk to planning board and I would talk to council about.
Well, and I'm sorry, I need to take a step back on this one,
Yep.
but if there's a special dispensation in the flow rates for senior residential housing, right? Age-restricted senior residential housing under Title V?
Elderly.
Housing for elderly, it's called? Yep.
Okay. So Title V requires non-elderly. So the non-elderly rate
So
is
typ-
different than the elderly rate.
So typically, a bedroom in a house is 110 gallons per day per bedroom.
Yeah.
There's a carve-out, if you will, for these housing for elderly, and that's how it's spelled out in the code, that allows up to a 2-bedroom unit, and they allow you to use 150 gallons a day.
So my question on that is the reduction, reduction in the flow, what is that based on? Because there had to be some basis for it, and I'm assuming that it's based on age.
So it's over 55.
Yep.
And there's language in there about how often kids under 18 can be in the unit. It's some crazy number, like no more than, I don't know, 3 months in a 9-month period. Somebody sat down and thought about, okay, kids go to school for this. So somebody figured it, and so those are the components of age-restricted housing.
So I think what we were doing was making sure, so we have a flow rate that's related to age, that's developed based on age.
Yep.
And what we're trying to, but then the senior residential and the elderly is not based on age in town.
That's right, so
we're-
though
we're-
this says senior.
We're trying to relate the basis for this flow reduction to what it's meant to be, which is age, and that's why we're doing this.
Okay, but I don't, this is where the kind of disconnect in between the two. According to Barn, and I haven't had a chance to read it, this wasn't necessarily meant to be age-restricted housing.
The 120 rate is meant to be age-related.
150, no, that's right. But in this case here.
150, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I might have said 120. In this case here, the bylaw that's allowing.
I understand that, but
Okay.
what I'm saying is that 150 rate is meant to be related to age. It's based on age.
So what you're saying, and if I read this correctly, is you're saying these units can't be any more than 100, for a 2-bedroom, can't be any more than 150 gallons a day. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we want to tie the 150 back to what it was meant to, what it reflects, which is age.
Sure, but this.
I'm not saying that.
Okay, but
I'm
what you're
saying the
doing.
150 is based on age.
Sure, and that's Title V, so.
Yes.
When somebody comes in and says, I want to build housing for elderly, they can use that rate. But if they want to come in and build some of the senior housing, it doesn't necessarily need to be, according to the bylaw, age restricted, if I understand it correctly.
and
So-
how can it be senior housing if it's not
It's
age
not.
restricted?
It's not, it's a loophole. But I
Yeah,
just,
I can't speak to why
we're
it
gonna
was-
have notes here, and I wanna be really clear on
Yeah.
this, of what we're trying to do.
Yep.
The reduction, the allowable reduction in flow under for elderly housing is based on the age of the occupants.
Correct, so it's
We
age
are, as a Board of Health, because that reduction in flow is is related to the age, we wanna make sure that linkage is established.
Sure, but again.
That's not what I'm talking,
Okay. so
just what I said right there, not
Okay.
that
Can we,
bylaw.
can we change that or not? 'Cause
But this
you're
is, so
referring to that.
your proposed regulation does tie senior housing, which is this, to 150. So if you, which one of that is it?
But we want to relate it to age.
The 150 is relating it to age.
So if you look at Regulation 34, it talks about senior residential developments,
Right.
and that's what this bylaw states, but this bylaw doesn't necessarily age.
I know that.
Okay,
Yeah.
but what you're doing by having this bylaw is turning these units into age restricted?
No. the reduction in flow rate is related to age,
I understand that.
and we're just making that relationship clear. Just the flow rate.
But you're tying it to this particular type of development.
That's what the basis of this is, correct? Yeah. Okay.
And you're saying that we can't do that?
No, I'm saying you're restricting something that wouldn't otherwise be restricted, so I would talk to town council about it.
The
Okay.
reason
All
that
right,
we're
we gotta
doing
talk to
it
town
is
council.
because the flow is based on age. That's why we're talking about this, just strictly speaking. The reduction in allowable flow rate is related, it was developed based
I
on the
mean,
age of
how did this all
occupants.
come about, this whole new, because this is completely new.
Because we have senior residential developments that would probably want to use the lower flow rate, but are not going to be restricted to age, which is
No,
what.
I wouldn't let them, I'll be honest, because the Cricket Lane one.
Yeah, but it's a lot easier if we codify it.
No, you're codifying it to allow them to use the lower range and to age restrict it, so the only way they could. So I told Roger that if it wasn't age restricted, it's gonna be designed on the regular bedroom number. It's,
Okay, so maybe there's just a different way to write this,
well,
that it has to be consistent with Title V and it has to be elderly housing to get the rate, which
So-
is basically the same thing, because elderly housing is over.
well, that's why I was suggesting that maybe you talk to planning board and kind of figure out, I don't know enough about
Yeah.
the bylaw yet. This is something you guys passed it.
So it's the same thing, it's just a different way of
This
saying
fall,
it.
this past fall,
Okay.
yeah. So. And I haven't, she gave it to me today, I haven't had a chance to read
Yeah,
it.
I'm not familiar with it either.
Surprisingly not that thick.
It's
not
a
as bad,
surprising
yeah.
regulation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to beat the dead horse again and go back to this water level, and I promise I'll be short on it.
No,
Can I go back to that now? Because
Oh,
we've
yeah.
got, okay, so what we talked about before.
Regulation 4?
Was it 4? I know it's getting late, but, so the proposed regulation is what was in effect in 2007.
Okay.
So everything we talked about was in effect in 2007. So what you said was that we wouldn't be able to, I believe you said, maybe I misunderstood, under this proposed reg, we couldn't build on 2/3 of Littleton.
Nope.
So are you saying that previous to 2007, we couldn't build on 2/3 of Littleton?
No, so when we had a groundwater season, what you would do is you'd go out in February, March, or April, and they'd dig the 10-foot holes, and you'd look, see where the water was, and then they'd bury the holes. And you'd come back in July and August when it was dry, and you'd run the perks in the dry soil.
Okay. But our proposed regulation is consistent with what was in there 2007. Don't think there's any change there.
Yeah. So what we did isn't any different, it's just, instead of doing it one period of time, you do it over 2 periods of time. We're still gonna look to do the perk test in dry soil.
Okay, so the regulation as it stands is okay, because we did it before 2007, and it did allow building in Littleton.
Oh, yeah, no,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, I'm
No,
sorry.
what I was saying is that if you required builders to go out and
Okay, I
do the perk
understand.
test when the soil is actually wet,
Yep, I got you.
then that would be an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I would leave the proposed reg the way it is, which is consistent with what it used to be.
Just defining that consistent soil, or taking
Yeah.
out the word consistent.
Yeah, that
we-
part,
we
but
can
the
get
rest
the-
of it,
Get it close to, get it to where Title V is, you just use Title V.
I'm sorry for going over that so many times.
So that was it.
Yeah, so, I think what we should do is come up with a schedule on how we're gonna, so we've had 2 meetings on this, we had a lawyer look at it, we've had Jim look at it.
Oh, we
and-
haven't heard from the lawyer.
From Cheryl,
Oh,
Cheryl Sparrow?
Yeah, Cheryl Spark, well, you were at the last meeting, weren't you? Yeah. So, you mean the questions that she was gonna look up for us?
Right.
Yeah, there were a couple of things that were outstanding.
We haven't really,
So
I
we
mean,
need
she
to
was
get that
here to
back.
read through it, but she
I
didn't.
think
really-
what she was going to follow up with was some sort of expert from the DEP on just a
Yeah.
couple of questions.
Yeah, I think there were just a couple of things
I think
there.
Jim's knowledge of Title V will
Is
cover
more.
us on that.
But
yeah.
what I'd like to recommend or suggest, I guess I should say, is that next time we review and shoot to put together a schedule for releasing the proposed regulations, or voting on it at least, whether we want to go forward.
We have to have a public hearing.
Well, we will, yeah, but like right now, we're still in the review mode on developing these, because people want to look at them some more. So we need to make sure everybody's got the information to look at before the next meeting.
Yeah.
So that when we come to the meeting, everybody needs to be responsible for having looked at it and be ready to voice their opinions
Yeah,
and
and
comments
comment, yeah.
and finalize it and move
Yeah,
forward.
that'd be good.
So when you say move forward with the public hearing?
With the
The next
process.
Yeah, so, I mean, at that point, get them to where you like them.
Yes,
Do the public hearing.
Yeah.
Once you close
Review
the
by
public hearing,
council.
make any adjustments you're gonna make, and then.
yeah,
vote.
and it would be reviewed by council too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's probably a good time to do it, is once you've gone through the public hearing, so he's only doing it once.
Yeah.
Mhm.
because we,
Oh, you mean after the public hearing
So,
for town council?
get them to where you like it, have your public hearing, take any input, make any changes you might make
Oh,
based on
okay.
public comment,
Okay.
and then come up with a clean copy that you then want to have. I mean, you could have Tom look at
I'd
them.
actually like him to look at it twice before and
Yeah,
after
that's
the
fine.
public
It's-
meeting.
it's
Because
just
why
a
bring
matter
it to
of-
public meeting if it's not,
I was gonna say, maybe when you get a point to, you like it, have him look at
Yeah.
it first. But that may actually help you in public hearing, saying, geez, our council's looked at it.
Right.
He's answered those questions.
yeah, because we want people to be comfortable and make sure that everything that is included in our record, and so that when, if there are any questions, people can go back later and see exactly, what the rationale was. And thank you so much for your help. We appreciate you coming in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jim.
thanks a lot.
And thank you for
You're a
reviewing.
wealth of
them.
information.
Yeah,
Well, I've got you here.
Yeah.
I send comments to the meeting. It's what I think you need to know to make a decision.
yeah,
If there's some other format that works better for you, let me know.
I
I mean,
don't think
I try to let you know that it's in failure, because that makes a big difference if you're granting variances on it.
yeah,
I'd like to tell you why it's in failure. So sometimes we get a Title V, and that's why it's in failure, because it says right there it's in failure. Sometimes, like Snow Drive, if it's in the ground, it's in 16 inches of groundwater, it's in the water table, so that's a failure.
yeah,
I like to tell you why they may need the variances, so I usually tell you what the restrictions are on the lots. So sometimes, like this one here, if that house was back 20 feet, that'd have been great. Probably
Yeah.
could have done it without half, with half the variances. So sometimes it's the house location, sometimes it's the lot geometry, sometimes it's the water table. So and then I try to tell you what I think one way or the other. So I mean, if there's something else you'd like, information-wise,
I think it's been working pretty well.
I try to do it as succinct as possible. I look at how much do you want to try to read at a meeting.
Yeah. The only thing I have is if, to make sure that when it comes in, that any applicable regulation is in there. It's like the one that, there was a regulation, it said it was a suggestion in Title V, but it wasn't a requirement.
Okay.
Which was that?
The
So
10
you-
feet breakout.
Yeah, so even,
So the code reads, and this is where you get into the actual word.
so we'd like to see anything, any kind of, even if it's not a requirement,
Gray
any
area.
suggestion or anything like that, that comes out of Title V or the code that is applicable.
Okay, because the difference there is it says should instead of shall.
Right.
So should gives you the wiggle room,
We
shall.
want to see should, shall, and suggested,
Okay.
Recommended.
and recommended, any of those.
Okay. Well, should and shall are two very legalistic terms.
Right.
Recommendation is just, that's what he wants.
But we want to see all of those.
Sure.
Recommendation,
Yep.
good idea, whatever it says. Anything applicable. That's the
Well,
only thing
if
I
it
can
gets
think of.
complicated, I like to try to give you the code side if I think it's going to be somewhat controversial.
Yeah.
So you can say, no, this is what the code says.
Yeah.
In that.
No, I
particular-
appreciate that.
Yeah, that's really good.
But
Maybe-
again, it's how much do you want? I mean, how much text do you want? I try to keep it succinct so that.
Yeah.
it's-
Yeah, succinct is good, just as long as, like you said, that all the code sites are in
Yep,
there,
okay.
even if it's not a strict requirement. And then, the other thing was that, we're trying to do a revamp, or just take a look at everything to make sure that we're doing our jobs, what we're supposed to do.
Yep.
And, people understand their roles and responsibilities, and also that, that we're making people's, do whatever we need to do to make sure that, the job is easiest and works the best. And so is there any improvements or anything that you want to discuss while you're here?
No, I mean, I'm here to serve. My goal is to tell you what I believe the code would have you do, whether it's
Yeah.
Title V or the housing code or camp regulations or whatever,
Yeah.
well regulations. So I'm going to tell you what I think you need to know. You may not always agree, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I get pretty thick skin after 30 years. My goal is to make sure you come as close to right as we possibly can,
Yeah.
given that regulations are open to interpretation, and that we try to minimize getting sued.
But if you do have any concerns or something that we could help you out or you need support,
yeah.
I would hope that you would come to us.
Absolutely.
Please do that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to maybe track how, what decisions have been made on certain types of properties so that
Okay.
we can look back when we're, and see how things were dealt with at one point and apply them equally in the future,
In an effort to be consistent.
Sure.
to be consistent, right? And so that, is there a method that you might,
That's always a balance, because consistency is important, but every variance that comes to you, the site's different. And so when you make a decision or grant a variance, to me, it's always important to list the conditions and the reasons why you granted that variance.
The rationale, yeah, so that's
Because
exactly.
that helps you say, somebody says, oh, you granted that on somebody else's line, you can say, well, because of this,
Yeah,
this,
so
and this.
focusing on the rationale. is
I
probably-
mean, I think
But
that's
this one,
important.
like tonight, there was a lot there. So
There was
that-
a lot.
We were trying to figure out how to make it really succinct in like a spreadsheet, but that one, you're gonna have to list all the variances
right?
and the rationale, so there's no way around it, it has to be.
So, so the way I kind of look at it, if you're in an area of town water, and, I mean, where town water is provided, and maybe you don't have town wells in the area, so you're not as concerned about groundwater, maybe, a 2-foot reduction to groundwater is okay. Whereas if I'm in a neighborhood that's all wells, you're doing something other than a 2-foot reduction, because
Yeah.
you got wells to worry about real close by. So I think in more broad terms about the public health concerns that I might have and how I might
So
approach
those are
it.
things we have to figure out how we can set it up so it's easier. I think it's.
That's
yeah,
gonna be
it's
tough.
gonna be tough.
Yeah, and verbose, like you say, tonight, if you were to list all the reasons
Yeah.
and
Well, we
sometimes,
could have categories and just checks.
I mean, you guys, I'm not sure, were you on the board when Cricket Lane, it was this spring?
I was not.
Okay, that was a tough lot, Cricket Lane,
Mhm.
22.
Yes.
With the drip system and the tight tank. And
But I said to them, I says, you've got a well there, don't send me something that doesn't have treatment. You've got Sandy's, so they put a jet, I think it's a jet they put in there.
Okay.
So, again, there are things you could do to try to improve
Yeah.
the wastewater on the site.
I think we could do categories with checks. That's because they're usually the same kinds
Oh.
of things. And then if it's not, then we'll do different. So, do we have anything else? Anybody?
So is it possible that some people will be looking for those permits? Those are all
Oh, right there.
permits
Oh,
that,
yeah, yeah,
Signed
yeah,
that
yeah.
you're either, they've been approved before and they're just renewing them, or?
Yeah, I think we can do this
How many
after.
signatures do you need on
Oh, I
these?
guess we have.
3 is not, yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
Oh, it's
to mine.
done.
Oh, it's in my notebook. That's a nice pen.
Oh, I should ask you, somebody sent us a note about a property, King Road.
Yep, yeah, I got it too.
What, did you go down
I went down and looked. It's a kind of a frequent flyer, so I'm gonna look, see who owns it now. Used to be owned, well, I used to know the owner's name, but it has gotten worse since I was last down there. When they built those 2 new houses, not rebuilt those 2,
Oh, yeah.
excuse me, houses, we were down there a bit more, and they were starting to kind of pick it up, the family members. I don't know if the person there has passed away, so I'll check into it, yeah.
So what's the process for that property?
So-
That you would inspect it and then,
So if it, there's a general nuisance, a general law that talks about nuisances. So the board, under that general law, if you consider a public health nuisance, could order it cleaned up. And so if
under
that
a
was-
certain time frame, or?
You could set a time frame and enforce it, and if they don't do it, go to court if that's
The
the case.
nuisance thing is.
We can use the housing court, so you don't need counsel. It's not a fast process, but it is a process. So I'll go by and take a look at it.
I do have a question on 18 Edward Drive, Lot 24.
Okay.
Lot is subject to a grant of Title V nitrogen loading restriction and easement.
Yep. So, that big piece of property, I don't know if that's considered a cluster or what it is. So they took a big piece of property and put all the houses on a smaller portion of it. They had to agree not to build on the rest of that property to be able to balance out the nitrogen that the houses on the smaller lots are going to generate. So they call it a nitrogen aggregation plan. And so that wordage is that it says you can't put farm animals on that.
So it's not a variance or anything, it's
No,
just
no.
something that's allowed. Sounds like a good idea.
Well, it's allowed in the code for areas that, because the town well fields, the zone 2 creeps up in there somewhere, and so they had to do that for that. You're supposed to have at least an acre for every 4-bedroom house.
I know.
I think some of the bigger lots are 10,000, a little more than 20,000, so.
There's 10,000 in there, I think.
Oh, yeah, there's some tiny ones.
Yeah.
But there's all that land in between the houses on Oak and the houses on Edgewood, so.
Are they on individual systems?
Yes. It's all bone and gravel.
Yeah. Good.
You're going in the office tomorrow?
I'm not here, no.
I guess I can just leave
I
these.
can take, I mean, how would you?
We can leave them here.
Is there a place you said you have a key?
Aaron's got a key.
I
Yeah, if
do
you want
have
to
a
just leave them
key.
on the counter.
It's behind your computer.
Oh, thank you. I knew I had it right here.
Yeah, if you want to just leave them on the counter there.
Oh, okay.
There's at least one person who's going to be coming looking for one of those permits tomorrow, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be good. And the West Nile, you'll see over the course of the summer, as you get wet periods or dry periods, an increase or decrease. The state does surveillance all around, sends the reports. Usually, we start seeing more and more concerning reports in the fall, like late summer, early fall.
This room gets so hot.
It's
And it
not
sounds
bad
like the air
tonight.
conditioning's on, too.
It must have turned off.
Ooh, sometimes it's horrible.
Yeah, maybe
Usually-
maybe it's on a cycle.
Maybe it's me.
No, it's warm in here.
Oh, we should bring a fan.
Usually when I feel it getting so hot, I hear the fan kick on, but it's not happening right now.
Just goes on top of the pile, too.
I'm just going to connect this to the snow drive just so they know.
The bottom one.
They can kind of keep all that stuff together.
All right.
And then somebody want to adjourn us?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.